Hello everyone, my name's Yvonne and today we're going to make a Christmas flower arrangement using things that I've collected from the garden and a few recycled elements and some flowers which I bought from Tesco and some Oasis foam. Now the Oasis foam comes like this. It's a bio Oasis foam, so it's a biodegradable one at last. I didn't realise when I started learning flower arranging that they weren't biodegradable, and they come in sections, so I've cut off just one section and I'll show you what to do first before we start on anything else. I have a very large bowl of water here which is deeper than the Oasis foam. Keeping the word Oasis on the top, just sit it in the water and very quickly it'll sink in the water. If you don't do this, if you try and push it down, you'll create airlocks in the middle and your flower arrangement won't last. So, because as you can see, it's halfway down already. It'll sink, and as soon as it's sunk, we'll be able to put it in our pot and tape it down. And I'll explain why it needs taping down. It's because if you don't, it's quite easy for the whole thing to lift out of its mechanics and collapse. If it's a tall arrangement, it can collapse. Believe me, it happened when I was first learning flower arranging, and I came home and I had some lovely sunflowers and I thought, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll be able to do it, they'll be fine, until they collapsed and fell onto the hearth in front of the fire. So I do suggest that you get yourself some tape. If you're really stuck, as I said, we're into not spending a huge amount of money today. You can use sellotape. It's not the best, but if you're absolutely stuck, you can use sellotape to keep your mechanics in your dish. Okay, so while I'm talking to you, it's actually now gone down below the water, so it's fine for putting in the bowl. If you think it hasn't taken on enough water, you can, with a skewer it in a few places, and if you see air bubbling out, you'll know that there is still an airlock inside, and the putting in the skewers will release that air and it'll soak all the way through. The tape that I'm using is a florist tape, and what you'll have to do is fix it to the side of your vase, then come round and go down to the other side. If you've got quite a light receptacle, you can lift it up and go all the way around the other side, and it needs at least 2 pieces of tape. And then that should stop it from going anywhere. Right, now we've done that, we'll have a look at the mechanics of the flowers and anything else that you need. I found these on in a local forest and dried them out, and they were quite closed when I got them, but when you dry them out in a low oven or on the top of a radiator, they will open out and they'll stay open then. What I then have is some aluminium wire which I'm going to fold in half. Then I'm going to find a convenient place down towards the bottom of this pine cone, and then bring the wire together and twist it. Now aluminium wire is lovely for going through the pine cones because it's so pliable and it twists really nicely, and once it's twisted it becomes a lot firmer, and that's what you want. So you want to wire up at least 6 if not 8 of these pine cones, which incidentally I also gave a little bit of snow coating to with some acrylic silver paint. Now let me talk to you a little bit about what you do with your flowers when you bring them home from the supermarket to make sure that they're going to work quite well in the Oasis. First of all, you have to snip off at least ½ an inch, if not an inch, from the bottom of the flowers. Put your flower feed in a deep vase and put them in and leave them overnight. So you'll see now that these roses are still quite firm, because sometimes they'll fall over quite easily and then you'll ruin the whole effect. So you have to do that. Don't try and bring them home and do your flower arrangement straight away. They probably won't last, because the flower arrangement has far less water than there is in a vase. Now, before I do anything with the flowers, I'm going to set up my greenery so that I have a good shape around my dish. And I'm not looking for anything tall with this. This is going to be a table or a sideboard arrangement, so I don't want it much higher than that, but it will be about this wide and this wide. So I've got some of this juniper, which was growing very close to me, and we went out and picked it earlier on. And when you decide how big it is, look at the length of where it's going to go into the foam and how far out you want it at the side, and then you cut it there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take off some of these leaves, because if I don't, when it goes into the foam, it'll make a big hole and these won't hold firm. So I'm going to start at the side with my first piece. Then I'm going to do that around all 4 sides, and then I'll come back and you'll see. Right, now I've got my 4 pieces in. These are obviously shorter than these because I want it to be a sort of almost a rectangle. Then I'm going to take some smaller pieces and put them in at the side. Remember what I said? Take off any of these bottom leaves. And that's now given us a very nice framework for the rest of our design. Okay. Oops. Make sure that you angle them so that they're not all going skew. So we've got a nice framework for our design, and then I'm going to put a few more just sticking up then before I do the rest of it. Next, I'm going to use some of this beautiful bay that I have growing in my garden, and I've taken off the lower leaves again, and I'm going to use this for a little bit more texture. And then I'm going to have a couple more up here, and then we will start with maybe the flowers. I have put the bay in, and then I decided that I could see a little bit too much oasis, and it's a good idea to cover your oasis as much as you possibly can. So I put a few more of this juniper sprigs in to cover the oasis, and don't forget the flowers are going to cover everything as well, so we don't need to worry about that. So now we're going to move on to our flowers, and this is where everyone screams, because I'm going to take possibly my largest flower and I'm going to decide where I want it to go. So I want it to go in the middle of this, and it's going to be cut approximately there. Take the leaves off, because the leaves will take away the water from the flower, and go into the centre. And try and get it right, because if you pull up and down, you'll make a hole and it won't sit properly. So my design is going to have flowers going down that way and flowers going down that way, and then filled in with cross flowers of the pinks, the little carnations, spray carnations, to fill in, and then last of all I'll put the pine cones in. So give me a second and I'll be back. Okay, I brought this a little bit closer because I thought it was a bit too far away for you to see what was going on. As you can see already, there's a line going across there, and then there's a line going across there. And so I'm going to start to fill in across. So you always think of everything in lines. I've got some more roses here. This one's a bit long, so I shall cut it down. Okay, there's my line, and there's my line. Next, we're going to go on to the spray carnations, and you'll see that we'll start to fill things in. Right, now then I've started to put the spray carnations in, and again you can see that I'm following a line, and just very carefully go into your oasis foam, and you should see the design starting. If I hold it up, is that better? And then I'm going to carry on, and I'm going to do a cross line this way. I want some of my flowers to be in a lot deeper, because it's called recession, and it also covers the oasis foam. And basically you keep on going, making sure you're following your line on this side. So put that there, and then I'll put one in here for some recession. Okay, and I'm going to keep on going and then just fill this out as I go along. Right, last but not least, we're going to put in these pine cones. And again, think like you did before, they've got to look good. So if you put one there, you need to balance it with one on this side. And then do the same. Cut it a little bit shorter. One on this side. Just thinking where they go. One on this side. So that's 4. We have plenty more. So I'm going to take one down here and one over there. And then I'm going to look at it and decide where else I want one. So I think that that's missing one there, and then I'll have one over the other side as well. Of course, if I can find them. What do you think? No, maybe a little bit. And a bit too. I think it's in a little bit too deep, to be honest with you. I'm going to lift it up a little bit. Just thinking to myself, I definitely did 8 of these. And do the same over here. Okay, now I have plenty of flowers left. I'm going to move all of that greenery away from there for you to see it, and then we'll decide on whether or not to put any more in. When I turned around to clean up the foliage, I knew there was something missing. I'd forgotten to put the ivy in, and I think the ivy, with all that spikiness, gives the design a lot more movement, and I wouldn't leave it out if I were you. I had lots of little sprigs growing in the garden, and this is possibly the best thing to do with ivy because it's so invasive. So enjoy, and I hope to see what you do.